This is an exercise or some exercises on cultivating self-forgiveness. You cultivate self-forgiveness by understanding the forces impacting upon you that caused you to harm others. So to begin, write a list of the people you've harmed and the ways that you've harmed them. You might want to also write a list of the ways that you have harmed yourself, because you're just as important as the people that you've harmed in terms of forgiving yourself. After you make this list, one by one, go through your list and write down the various causes and conditions that you can think of that led you to your action or your inaction. See if there are any connections between your harmful actions and perhaps whether or not you were abused or neglected in the past. Now think of other precipitating factors such as a family history of violence and a family history of addiction, as well as maybe more subtle factors that could have affected you, such as stress due to financial problems or marital problems. Maybe you were hurt or angry in some way. Maybe you just weren't aware. Maybe you were self-preoccupied, just not conscious of the impact you were having on other people. Maybe you were caught in the web of addiction or some other strong impulse that you just felt swept away by. I want to make a point as you do this, it's not that you're letting yourself off the hook or not taking accountability for your behavior. Self-forgiveness is not about letting yourself off the hook. We're forgiving ourselves while at the same time still maintaining our sense of accountability for our behavior. So as you think about the causes and conditions, ask yourself to consider why you didn't stop yourself from harming either yourself or somebody else. For example, were you so full of rage that you couldn't control yourself? Did you hate yourself so much that you didn't care how much you hurt someone else or hurt yourself? Had you built up a defensive wall that you couldn't have empathy or compassion for the person you harmed or for yourself? Think about that and write down some of the things that come to mind for you. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the practice of making apologies. To do this, you first want to prepare by spending some time thinking seriously about how your actions or inaction have harmed another person, or even how they've harmed yourself. So in the PDF, I have some sentence completion exercises that you can do. For example, you can write down, I harmed X person by doing such and such. Write down all the ways your action or inaction harmed this person. This is really good preparation for making amends to them. You can write down, I caused such and such to suffer. I caused this person to suffer in the following ways, and then list all the ways that you caused them to suffer. A meaningful apology is one that communicates the 3 R's of an apology: regret, responsibility, and remedy. A statement of regret for having caused the inconvenience, hurt, or damage is the first part. This includes an expression of empathy towards the other person, showing that you understand how your action or inaction harmed this person. Second, after you state your regret and your awareness of the way that you've harmed them, then you take responsibility. You make an acceptance of responsibility for your actions. Really, for an apology to be effective, it must be clear that you are accepting total responsibility for your actions or your inaction. This means not blaming anyone else for what you did and not making any excuses for your actions. One of the worst things you can say is, I didn't mean to. You really do not want to say that. That is not helpful. It will just really alienate the other person, because it's really not taking accountability for your behavior. And then the third part of an apology or an amends in this model is to make a statement of your willingness to take some action to remedy the situation if you can, if possible. While you can't go back and undo or redo the past, you can do everything within your power to repair the harm that you caused. Therefore, a meaningful apology needs to include a statement in which you offer restitution in some way if possible, an offer to help the other person, or a promise to take action so that you won't repeat the behavior again, so that you won't cause harm again. In the case of emotional or physical abuse, you can maybe say that you're going to enter therapy or support group to make sure you don't abuse anyone again. You can offer to pay for your victim's therapy, or you can donate your time or money to organizations that work to help victims of abuse. That's just one example. Be creative in this in terms of thinking about ways to repair or make restitution. There's a process that people talk about of making living amends, where we live and and in the way that we live our life, we go forth and not cause harm again in the same ways. It's another kind of form of restitution. Okay. These refer to the PDF of this brief video to see these steps, and then to see the sentence completion exercises so that you can do this work. I really recommend that before you make an apology or amends to somebody, that you do this. Now, what does this have to do with self-forgiveness? Well, what it has to do with self-forgiveness is that if you go through this exercise of making apologies, as well as having this deep understanding where you're compassionate, understanding towards yourself, but also holding yourself accountable, where you develop insight into why you acted the way that you did, with a sense of accountability, but also compassion for yourself, that you're just another human being, just like the rest of us, who was really subject perhaps to forces that just at the time you weren't aware or skillful enough to manage, in a way that wasn't harmful to yourself or others. If you can develop that kind of compassionate, insightful accountability towards your own actions and behavior, that will really facilitate self-forgiveness, as well as this process of making amends or apologies to other people.